Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Crypto News Podcast. It's your host, Matt Zahab. We are buzzing as always. And for the folks who are viewing and not listening, yes, I am in a bit of a different background today. I'm back at home at my parents' lovely house. All the incredible Christmas stuff behind me, that is my amazing mother. If this was my condo in Toronto, I would not be putting the effort and the work to make it look like it currently looks. But shout out to Julie, my mom. She's absolutely incredible and she's making it look good. Guys, what a rude awakening. Got back yesterday. We are recording on the 23rd. I flew back on the 22nd. And I got into Toronto with a nice minus 18, felt like minus 25. It was 30 degrees in Buenos Aires, and now it is minus 25 here in Toronto. So it's pretty freaking cold, but c'est la vie. We're buzzing as always. Super pumped to have today's guest on the show, the one and only Edan Yago, core contributor to Sovryn, a decentralized layer 2 Bitcoin trading and lending and asset management platform. Earlier in his career, he founded several other companies in the Bitcoin and crypto space, including CementDAO and Epiphyte, which provided global remittance services. He's an anti-finance financier, I love that term, and radical optimist. He's done a little bit of everything, and he's made it his mission to marry the best of both worlds together, bringing unity back to the blockchain universe. I cannot wait to get into this one, as I am bullish on Bitcoin-based DeFi, and we got one of the OGs in the space. Yago, welcome to the show, my friend. How you doing this lovely evening?
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Matt.
Yago, let's jump right into this. Bitcoin has been on an absolutely wild ride. Heck, earlier this year, it seemed like we were in the dumps, and a week ago, we hit 108. We're back in the 90s right now. Everyone's sort of shitting bricks. It's still a pretty awesome place to be, but I think we got to start with the big dog himself, as you and I are recording on Monday, December 23rd. Michael Saylor, every single Sunday, what does he do? He throws up that nice little chart of his with the blue and green dots and goes, hey, looks like we need another dot on the chart, and then he buys a shitload more Bitcoin. What's your take on Saylor in the market right now, and is this guy not one of the sickest puppies to ever live? You gotta love to see it.
There are a lot of people who are complaining about Saylor. They're complaining about one of two things. First of all, they think he might be the next FTX, that is, or the next GBTC. I don't think so. If you actually look at sort of liquidation conditions for the BTC that he holds, in many cases, BTC could go to zero. In many cases, he's holding debt which has a 0% interest rate. He can hold for many, many years, even under very, very trying conditions, and never have to sell a BTC. And based on his approach, it doesn't look like he will. So I think that that's probably overblown worry. The other thing that people are really worried about and angry at Michael Saylor for is buying up all the BTC. They're concerned that he's going to have too much BTC and maybe too much power. Well, one of the nice things about BTC is holding a lot of BTC doesn't give you any power. Bitcoin, for good reason, is a proof of work system, not a proof of stake system. And so he's actually not buying any ownership or any control over the system. But I think the biggest thing about a Saylor is really, I think it's pretty obvious who we should be angry at. And that's at everyone who is selling them Bitcoin. Who is selling Bitcoin right now? Right, over the last 2 months, there's been over 900,000 BTC sold, right? People saw the 100,000 number. That was like a magical number that they wanted to achieve, and they've sold out. And so Saylor, myself, other people are just buying up all of those coins. You know, there are persistent rumors about governments doing the same.
Yeah.
Selling now, like basically every single coin that Saylor buys is somebody else's mistake.
Well said. What do you take into any of this Dubai and UAE having 40 billion in Bitcoin? You think that's real? Is that fugazi? What's going on there?
I have no insider knowledge, but if I was the emir of a Middle Eastern oil country, you know, and I was looking at the petrodollar, and I was looking at the fact that they're talking about an SBR, and that more than 10 states in the US, as well as El Salvador and now Holland and a bunch of other countries, have said that they're going to be looking to buy BTC or create BTC strategic reserves. And I was looking at the fact that Milei is president of Argentina, and the fact that Putin said that nobody can stop Bitcoin. I would be buying.
Well said. Could you imagine just sticking a straw in the ground, sucking and making hundreds of millions of dollars an hour? Like, oh my goodness. Yago, we're in the same yacht here. If I was I don't even know what his name is, but if I was the dude running the show there in the UAE, I would be all over this. And again, they make so much bloody money. It's such a small chunk of their float. Throw it into Bitcoin. Only good things can happen. But let's jump into some Bitcoin-based DeFi, and then we will get into everything BitcoinOS related, which I cannot wait for. I think a good place to start would be Vitalik Buterin's tweet from December 17th, which was, I guess, exactly a week ago. I absolutely love to see this. I'll let you summarize this, but he was talking about ZK Tech on Bitcoin to enable some type of Bitcoin-based DeFi, and you were just like, hey, dude, wakey, eggs and bakey, we've been doing this shit. Tell us a little bit about that tweet and what you guys are building over at BitcoinOS.
Yeah, so one of the sort of most famous things that Vitalik ever wrote was a blog post that he wrote in, I think it was 2019, 2016, I don't remember. In any event, it was a while ago. And he described something which he called functional escape velocity. All right, basically, he said that for a chain, any chain, to sort of be the perfect chain, what you wanted it is to have two properties. You wanted to have a property where it's basically unchanging, simple, minimalist, right? Because that is maximal reliability. And on the other hand, you want it to be just complicated enough, just have just 1 inch of extra complexity, which would allow you to have that system integrate with and bridge assets to and from other systems, other execution environments, basically other layers trustlessly. If you do that, that's escape velocity, right? Because now everything can be built on that system without the system having to change. Now, it's kind of weird. Like, I have a lot of respect for Vitalik. He's a very, very deep thinker. But it's kind of weird that he was the person that wrote that, because if you look at Ethereum didn't take their path at all, right? They claim that they're now sort of going modular and multi-layer, but before they went modular or multi-layer, they built this extremely thick, sort of ever-changing, highly complex chain. A chain so complex that there's not a single developer in the world anymore who understands all of it. And they basically threw everything into a chain, including the kitchen sink, right? Its execution environment, it's got its own consensus, it's got its own proof of stake system, it's got its own programming languages, it's got everything, right? And now that doesn't scale, right? And I think Bitcoiners were always saying that's not going to scale. You can't scale these really, really heavy systems and keep them decentralized. It just doesn't work. And that is exactly why Vitalik said, you need to, like, the perfect chain is minimalist, is reliable, is unchanging, is permaware, right? Not software like Ethereum, not hardware like, my phone, but permaware, hardware like, but in code. So when you describe that, there's really only one chain that sounds like that, and that's Bitcoin. So, I think Vitalik started as a Bitcoiner and still has sort of Bitcoin envy, right? And then there's that little extra bit that's always been missing from Bitcoin. And sort of that's been the big thing, right? Bitcoin is boomer coin, Bitcoin can't do this, Bitcoin can't evolve, because it didn't have this little extra bit. And so what Boss does, we call the Holy Grail, because what we've done is we've just, with this tiny little addition, on Bitcoin mainnet today, we've added that tiny little bit that allows us to build an entire operating system around Bitcoin. That allows you to write any type of code that you want and have it interact with Bitcoin. That allows you to have trustless bridging with Bitcoin. That allows you to have rollups to Bitcoin. It's extremely minimalist and extremely powerful.
And this, just for listeners at home who might not be as sort of in tuned as, again, I don't want to put myself in the same boat as you because I am in a boat, you are in a yacht here, but regardless, it's like giving the programmability, the smart contract oomph to Bitcoin. How could you explain that in sort of layman terms, just for the listeners who might not be as in tuned as you and I?
Sure. So first of all, let's start maybe really basic. Like, what is a smart contract? Smart contract is a set of instructions that you can write that govern how an asset is going to be used, right? So the problem with BTC is there's basically only two things you can do with it. You can hodl it, like a dragon sitting on his pile of gold, or you can transfer it to some other dragon. You can send it. Right? That's
Bingo.
it. Right? But if you look at Solana, BNB, Ethereum, whatever, right? There you can create applications. You can create DeFi. You can create new tokens. You can have these tokens be programmable. You can have decentralized trading. Like, you can really increase the envelope of security, increase the envelope of decentralization. And that is very, very powerful. It allows you to effectively rebuild the whole world on the basis of incorruptible, decentralized systems. So how do we bring this to Bitcoin? How does Boss bring this to Bitcoin? And what we've done is we've managed to do something which a lot of people thought was impossible, which is introduce a new type of cryptography, a new type of verification of cryptography to Bitcoin without any soft fork, without any changes. And this cryptography is called zero-knowledge cryptography. So if you want, I can explain zero knowledge, but for the purpose of this explanation, I'm just going to skip that. I'm going to tell you what it does. What it allows us to do is to take any computation, right? And this could be a very, very complicated computation. It could be a whole other chain. It could be thousands of transactions so that you can get scaling at low cost. It could be making transactions private. It could be building DeFi applications. It could be creating new tokens. It could be any type of set of instructions, right? Anything you can imagine. And then instead of writing that to Bitcoin directly, which would make Bitcoin, the chain, very, very heavy and would be very expensive. And also you just can't do it with Bitcoin
Bingo.
today. What we do is we take that entire complex computation and we fold it into a tiny little proof called the zero knowledge proof that we then post that proof. This proof is smaller than a standard Bitcoin transaction. It's only 300 bytes. It's nothing. But we post that proof to Bitcoin, and now Bitcoin gets eyes and a brain because it gets to see that computation and understand that computation just because we can verify the computation on Bitcoin.
I absolutely love that. Walk me through what the future of this looks like. Again, we're going to definitely take a huge deep dive into BOS, as you call it, Boss, but the future of Bitcoin-based DeFi. A lot of people have been talking about this for a while because Bitcoin is still the biggest chain by a country mile. It's still the most powerful, whether people want to admit it or not. You have nation states, you have Fortune 500, now Fortune 100 companies adopting it. What does the future of Bitcoin look like? And tie that into Bitcoin-based DeFi. Are we going to see decentralized exchanges on Bitcoin that are as big as the hyperliquids and all the other big ones? Are we going to see huge NFTs, not just a couple of the smaller ones? Like what is that whole thing going to look like? Maybe a couple months, years, decades down the road?
I think it's going to be much bigger. And the reason is that the world of finance is giant. It's trillions and trillions of dollars. It includes really important things, people's mortgages. Mortgage is something you have for 30, 35 years. It includes people's savings accounts, something you have for your entire life. It includes pensions, something you pay into for 50 years. It includes infrastructure projects, which pay out, massive investments that only pay themselves back over 75 years. It includes government bonds, right? T-bills are 30-year sort of tokens, right?
Yeah.
And so all of these things are very, very long term. And none of that, except for BTC, exists in crypto today. All we've managed to capture with crypto is this tiny little sliver of speculation and gambling, right? Which, is something that, testosterone fueled 20-something-year-olds in their mother's basement do a lot of. And to us, seems like the entire world. But it's a rounding error in the entire world of finance. Okay, so why are we stuck there? Why after all of this innovation for the last 15 years are we still just capturing, except for BTC, which is which has already become like a true long-term asset class? Why are we still just stuck in this little box of gambling, speculation, FOMOnomics, Ponzi scams? Why? The reason is that we've built systems that feel like software. They feel like software to developers, and they definitely feel like software to the world of finance. These are systems that are constantly being upgraded and constantly changed. Sometimes they go down, right? So Solana 3 or 4 times a year just stops working.
Yep.
All of them are constantly changing, constantly getting more complicated. They feel like Microsoft Windows, right? There's like a bigger and bigger, more complicated thing, and it's going to get hacked eventually. So if we want to have real finance, we need to build it on systems, on a platform that is so reliable, so trusted, and so long-lived that it will outlast even generational wealth, right? You can literally use it for inheritance. There's one platform like that, and it's Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And so now we're in a situation where all of the sort of largest financial institutions in the world are getting super comfortable. Right? The Fidelities, the BlackRocks, the central banks of the world are getting super comfortable with BTC and the Bitcoin blockchain. And with Boss, we've added the functionality that allows them to actually start using this as the global settlement system, as the global ledger. And so with BOSS, we're opening the door that allows us to escape this tiny little sort of prison cell that crypto has been stuck in because it's only been speculative. And so when BlackRock wants to tokenize government bonds, when Fidelity wants to tokenize Tesla and Nvidia shares, when large REITs want to tokenize real estate and JP Morgan want to tokenize collateralized debt obligations around mortgages, where are they going to do it? They're going to do it on the one chain, which is a global system accepted by everyone, which has a track record of being unhackable, and most importantly, that they know is not going to change. It's going to look today the same way it looked yesterday, and more importantly, it will look in 50 years the same way it looks today. And so this is a massive turning point. And what's cool is it comes at exactly the same time that we've seen a massive turning point also in the regulatory environment. So finally, for the first time ever in crypto's history, we have both the technological platform and the regulatory environment that allows true finance. And so if up until now we've been talking about TVLs in billions, we need to start thinking about, in 4 or 5 years, TVLs in the trillions.
And this comes back to your point from 10 minutes ago, which I love, the functional escape velocity Bitcoin always had. That masterful being digital gold, it's something that you can hodl forever. It's something that you could send to a friend or for business or for whatever case, but you couldn't do a whole lot with it. Now with incredible teams like you guys, with Boss and with many others, we're going to be able to do a whole lot of fun shit with it. And that's what will evidently allow us to hit functional escape velocity.
Functional escape velocity and also economic escape velocity, right? Like, to my mind, I think
that next bridge.
Yeah, I think we are now staring down. I think we're basically all new to Bitcoin again. We're like, all of us are early, so early, because like I would be trying to sort of buy as much Bitcoin and other sort of core assets for this new world that we're looking at hand over fist, because we have the technology, we have the regulatory environment. We're going to now, people have been worried, like, how much bigger can this go, right? Well, Bitcoin itself is a tiny little asset. It's tiny. It's less than $2 trillion, right? In a world where, real estate is a $300 trillion asset class.
That's wild.
Where derivatives are a quadrillion dollar asset class, where, just the US stock exchanges are, I think today about 120 trillion. So Bitcoin is becoming the Internet of Value. Bitcoin is an entirely new financial category, and new financial categories, they settle at 100 trillion plus. So Bitcoin's going to 100 trillion, and the ecosystem of projects that are building around it are going to be the Facebooks, the Nvidias, the Teslas of tomorrow. So we're going to see multiple different tokenized projects that have market caps of over $1 trillion. And if you ask me how long this is going to take, well, it took us 14 years to go from zero to the first country adopting Bitcoin. I expect that we're basically 3 halvings away from the $100 trillion mark. So that's 12 years.
Wow. That's wild. Yago, you're on a roll here, mates, but we do need to take a quick break. Give a huge shout out to our sponsor of the show. When we get back, we are going to keep diving into BOSS, also known as BitcoinOS, and get into all the fun stuff here. Until then, huge shout out to Prime XBT, longtime friends and longtime sponsors of the Crypto News podcast. We love these guys as they offer a robust trading system for both beginners and professional traders. It doesn't matter if you're a rookie or a vet, you can easily design and customize your layouts and widgets to best fit your trading style. Prime XBT is also running an exclusive promo for listeners of the Crypto News pod. Use the promo code CryptoNews50, that is CryptoNews50, all one word, to receive 50% of your deposit credited to your trading account. Again, that is CryptoNews50, all one word, to receive 50% of your deposit credited to your trading account. And now back to the show with Yago. Let's jump right into it. I hate to be the guy that asks what separates you guys from competitors, what makes you different, blah, blah, blah. But we have had a shit ton of inbound recently for credible founders like yourselves wanting to come on the Crypto News pod. Again, when this came to the inbox, this was an absolute no-brainer to have you on, but I do got to ask, walk me through some of the unique features, some of the unique innovations that only BitcoinOS brings to Bitcoin-based DeFi, because again, we got tons of listeners who are going to be tuning in and being like, hey, why should I maybe tune in and follow these guys, invest with these guys, blah, blah, blah. What unique stuff do you guys have to offer, and what do you bring to the table here?
Yeah, so Boss is actually a very, very unique project. I'll start with the Bitcoin side and then I'll move on. So you've probably heard about Stacks and Merlin and B Squared and Core DAO,
100%.
right? All of these projects are building themselves up to be these Bitcoin layer 2s. The crazy thing is that even though some of them have, north of $1 trillion TVL already and are worth billions themselves, none of them are Bitcoin L2s. None of them are actually able to integrate into Bitcoin directly. What Boss allows is it allows those projects to integrate into Bitcoin for the first time ever. But it goes beyond that. So other L1s, and basically I think all systems, right? So Ethereum L2s like Mode have already begun the work of integrating with Boss so that they will not just roll up to Ethereum, but they will roll up to Bitcoin. Layer 1 projects, the massive ones like Cardano, are already, have basically rewritten their entire narrative, their entire purpose in life to becoming this compute environment, right? This smart contract platform for Bitcoin with Boss. This is a sea change in how we think about the entire structure of crypto. And Boss is what enables it. Because we had to rethink, like from first principles, everything about how we construct our system, because Bitcoin really wasn't built for this. We had to do really, really hard work in R&D in figuring out how we allow ZK verification to work with Bitcoin, how we allow systems to integrate with Bitcoin, but also how do we allow programmable tokens on Bitcoin? And so we've got something that we actually, I'm going to give you something that we haven't really discussed in public at all. We had to figure out how you build programmable tokens on Bitcoin using basically build programmable tokens on a system that natively was not anticipated to support them. And so we had to come up with some really intriguing solutions using cryptography. And we sort of broke our heads against the wall trying to do this. But now we have, and we're going to be introducing sort of more information about this in the white paper, is a method for generating ZK-driven programmable tokens on Bitcoin. And then once we had finished and we started playing with it, we suddenly realized that we had actually done something else entirely. Because we had to figure out how we can build tokens that can be native to a chain without using any of the sort of inbuilt programmability in the chain, we actually created tokens that can live on any chain. And so we've designed a system now, a new type of token standard that we are calling a generation 3 token standard. So the first generation of tokens were the sort of native token of Bitcoin, in Bitcoin's case, BTC, and altcoins, right? So XRP for Ripple, or, like every chain, or ETH for Ethereum. Generation 2 was the ability to create new tokens that were not sort of like the mother token on these chains, but they were still tied to the chain. ERC20s is like the obvious example. With the Generation 3 token, what we've created is the ability to have a token which can live on any chain. And not only that, can move trustlessly between them. And not only that, the way it thinks about smart contracts is totally different. Instead of being generated by a smart contract on Ethereum and therefore only being able to exist on Ethereum, and the only way you can get it onto something else is by wrapping it, and then it loses all of the smart contract information, we can have tokens which exist across the entire crypto ecosystem now that interact with a single smart contract that doesn't have to be on any specific chain. So as a developer, we're introducing now the technology which will allow you to deploy once and interact with liquidity across the entire chains, like a DEX or a lending pool that has liquidity from all of the chains. It doesn't fragment liquidity. You don't need to deploy a new version of it on every single chain. It's a totally different way of thinking about crypto as a single cohesive economy. All of crypto becomes one system that is the internet of money. And that's why we call our system BitcoinOS or BOS, right? We're actually an operating system overlay for the entire world of crypto.
That is insane. I mean, heck, you sort of, I had a plan to jig and jag this convo here, but you sort of just threw me. That's absolutely wild.
To be honest, this is so sort of new that we're not entirely sure how to explain it yet. I think I'm getting slightly better. This is why it's like, this is the first time I'm sort of speaking about it in public, I think. But this is wild. Like, it's blowing our minds.
Okay, we'll come back to this. But Walk me through some use cases, some partnerships, adoption. I know you guys have already partnered with a shit ton of companies. You have a shit ton more on the docket. Walk me through some other companies that you guys are working with. Obviously that I was literally just about to ask what cool things you guys are building that you can tell us about. That is pretty freaking cool. I'm going to have to go back, listen to this on a walk a couple times to really get the whole hang of this, but walk me through some partnerships and some potential examples of real world adoption here.
So where we started was we basically just wanted to make it possible for us to build a rollup on Bitcoin. That was like our mission initially. And then as we were figuring out how to do that, we realized that actually that is a pretty stupid thing to do with that ability, right? Like if you figured out how to build rollups on Bitcoin, the first thing to do is not build a rollup. The first thing to do is to go to like the 100 different projects that are trying to build rollups on Bitcoin and enable them to actually finally do it. But then we demonstrated the first ZK verification on Bitcoin mainnet at Bitcoin Nashville the day before Trump spoke. And then things got wild because suddenly all kinds of projects that we hadn't even really considered, like Ethereum rollups, like other layer 1 projects, like sort of bridging projects, some of the, largest, most significant projects in the space started reaching out to us. And they all had their own reasons. So layer 1s suddenly realized, wait, like there's going to be a race, like a new kind of game theory race for Bitcoin. There's going to be a race to try and build an ecosystem of DeFi for Bitcoin. And, the chains that win that are going to be the biggest chains of tomorrow. Just because Bitcoin is just such a massive asset, Bitcoin is almost $2 trillion asset, right? The closest next asset is Ethereum at like, 200 and something billion. So even a small percentage of Bitcoin going into DeFi swamps the entire TVL, not just of Ethereum, but really of everything
the
else
top
put
10,
together.
Yeah.
So that's wild. Like when that's the game opportunity, people start thinking differently about their role in the crypto space. The other thing that we saw is like Bridges started talking to us about, wait, you mean we can now bridge BTC? We can bridge new assets from BTC. We can bridge into BOSS and then integrate with the entire Bitcoin ecosystem.
That's powerful.
Right? So that's what they started talking to us about. And so different projects from the crypto space, everyone sort of has their own angle, right? Everyone sort of like if an Oracle project thinks, how can I propagate the data stream that I'm providing instead of having to go to every single chain and propagate it? What if Bitcoin actually did become the hub? I could propagate once and it gets propagated everywhere, secured by Bitcoin. So people have started to think, wait, we could use Bitcoin as the hub for what we're doing. And so I think we're going to see a lot of really creative use cases that we didn't even anticipate early on. And that's even before we sort of get to programmable tokens on Bitcoin, which I think, and smart contracts on Bitcoin, right? Or smart contract systems built for Bitcoin, which open up an entirely new space. And that's before we get to the idea of sort of the institutions like BlackRock. They have an entire division built around DeFi, but none of it is sort of selling any significant volume because all of the clients want BTC. And, the people at BlackRock have said, if we could somehow combine these two divisions, the division that's actually got clients, which is the BTC division, and the DeFi division, which is basically just R&D, we could sell these R&D products. And so look, I'm super pumped. Like I was trying to build a rollup on Bitcoin, and we've sort of completely jumped over ourselves here. And now we're scrambling to be able to, get this system and facilitate all of this inbound interest. But it's super exciting.
That's incredible. Last but not least, Q1 next year, key primitives, Grails, Merkle Mesh, programmable token framework, so many cool things will materialize and be launched on mainnet, which is really going to kickstart the next evolution of Bitcoin, which again, you and I, more you are so friggin' excited for. I'm still, I don't want to say Bitcoin maxi, but I love Bitcoin more than anything else. It is the reason why it's so big. And if you and I were to take a walk down, downtown Toronto and ask 100 people, what cryptos do you know? What coins do you know? I'd say 95% of them would at least name Bitcoin. Maybe a couple could name a couple more, but there's a reason why it's the big dog. But with that being said,
Bitcoin and fartcoin, man.
Literally, yes. But with that being said, give me some teasers for the next couple months. Obviously, by the time this episode airs, it will be, I want to say the 30th. It will be right before the new year. What do you guys have kicking off and popping off in Q1 next year?
Yeah, so we're going to be introducing our testnet. There's already some components which are on mainnet, but we're going to be introducing like the operating system testnet.
Gotcha.
We're going to be working on a very cool new way of creating a competitive audit, so we can actually incentivize the best developers in the world to compete against each other for finding flaws, if there are any. Something, because audits just are not, they're like rubber stamps today.
Yeah.
We want our auditors to be absolutely bloodthirsty and vicious. We're going to start introducing some tools, some incentivized tools, some fun games around exploring and using Boss. We've got a whole bunch of projects that are probably going to start letting people know they've been building on Boss. And we want to sort of go really, really old school with how we distribute the token, which means we want to distribute a very significant chunk of the token, and we want to do it as basically an ICO, and we want to use that as a way to kickstart, bring back ICOs. ICOs were amazing. A lot of people, remember them mostly for the scams, but all of the great projects came out of the ICO era, right? Binance, Ethereum, Chainlink, the list just keeps going. We want to do that. We want to do it in an order of magnitude bigger, because now crypto is an order of magnitude bigger, Bitcoin's an order of magnitude bigger, and we want to bring it to Bitcoin. So our goal is in a few years, companies don't go public on NASDAQ, they ICO.
I love that. What an episode, man. Really appreciate you coming on here. Before you let us go, Yago, can you please let us know where our listeners can find, of course, you personally and BitcoinOS online and on socials?
Sure. So I write in a bunch of different places, but probably the best place to follow me is the boring place. It's Twitter, @Edan Yago. And then BitcoinOS, you can go to the website, which is pretty bare bones now, but we're going to be adding a lot of information. And you can also sign up for, early access, participating in, the token, the pre-sale. So that's bitcoinos.build. And on Twitter, you can follow us at BTC_OS.
And again, Yago's Twitter is absolute fire, so highly recommend checking that out. Mate, what an episode. Really appreciate it. Super pumped for what you and the team are building. Can't wait to get involved myself. Obviously, I'm not a builder when it comes to the tech stuff, but I will be following along. You guys got a bright friggin' future ahead, and can't wait to see you work some magic.
Well, Matt, thank you very much. We're going to endeavor to make sure that the full potential of this is met. And thank you so much for having me on the show.
Appreciate it, mate. Folks, what an episode with Yago from BitcoinOS. He was absolutely dropping knowledge bombs left, right, and center. I absolutely love when someone comes on and really lights a fire. He certainly did that. We discussed everything Bitcoin-based DeFi related, ZK proofs, BitSNARK, the future of Bitcoin, you name it. Huge shout out to Yago and the team for making this happen. If you guys enjoyed this one, I hope you did. Please do subscribe. It would mean the world to my team and I speak to the team. Love you guys. Thank you so much for everything. Back to the listeners. Hope you guys had an incredible holidays. By the time this airs, it will be past Christmas. So Merry Christmas. And as always, keep on growing those bags and keep on staying healthy, wealthy, and happy. Love you guys, and we'll see you on the next one. Ciao.